New Director of Staff, and we are really, really excited to have Ms. Ann Mitchell with us today. She is an SES2. She is the Director of Installation and Mission Support at Global Strike Command. She's been in ACC, she's been in Youth Safety, she's been in AFMC, and I just thought this was a fantastic opportunity that we could not let pass to get some career guidance, mentorship, and learn from her while she's here. That's a unique opportunity. So thank you so much, ma'am.
Absolutely. And I arranged the weather as well. I was telling Jenna, that one of the things that I take very seriously is career mentorship. Partly because as I was coming up, I didn't have much. And, you know, it's like when you're growing up and you say, my mother never gave me, and I'm going to do it differently, right? So I thought, well, you know, it's a shame. Oh, thank you, Mr. Morris. I thought it was a shame that a lot of supervisors missed opportunities to shape my career. So one of the things I try and do when I go out, and I'm on the road quite a good bit, is to find opportunities to talk to pretty much anybody, whether it's NCOs, whether it's officers, or whether it's civilians. So particularly civilians, because your career path is different. And in youth safety, I think one of the things that is challenging is you're in the minority, right? This is where you nod, or you do this, or you do this. Just let me know, bodily language, let me know whether you're sending or receiving the message. So y'all are in the minority? Yes. It's trainable. Trainable. We're civilians are trainable. Yes. So we're in the minority. And oftentimes I have found, because as you heard, I spent 5 years at USAFE. And what I found when I was at USAFE was that I was kind of forgotten. Have y'all noticed that? So as a civilian, I was a little bit more on my own. And so when we started this trip last week, I started at Ramstein, talked to the Logistics Officers Association there, went to Spangdahlem and had a civilian call like this there, went to Pembroke, talked to the NCOs and the officers there, and then this morning we had NCOs, and at lunch we had NCOs and officers, talk to them. So this is what I do, is talk about, you know, big picture things. So I'm going to talk to you about a few things. If I don't hit the note that you want, you put up with it at first, and then at the end we'll open it up to questions and see what you're really interested in, that I bored you for 30 minutes, right? That was a joke. It's going to be a tough crowd, is it? Okay. All right. Sorry? What was it? I'll take side comments. Yeah. Back in the back? Okay. Nobody's gonna give it up, huh? I've got a few facts that I want to share with you. I'm going to do this a little bit differently because it's very warm in this room. If I see anybody asleep, you'll hear my voice go very loud to wake them up. Especially, I've got my two fine NCOs right here, so I'm watching their eyes. So I'm going to do this a little bit differently. I'm going to give you 4 facts. You may be promoted only if 4 times in your career. You may only be promoted 4, maybe 6, if you start really low. You know what I mean? If you start as a GS-11, there's no way, right? Do the math. 12, 13, 14, 15. There's no way to even hit 6 unless you become an SCS. Only 46 times in your whole career. That's kind of depressing when you think about it, isn't it? This is the heads. Okay. But what that means is you have to think a little bit about that promotion opportunity and how you posture yourself for it. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So that's fact 1. Only 4 to 6 times in your career. This is a fact no one likes. Coming up next, fact 2. Luck, timing, and the environment all play major roles. I'm getting some head nods, and I didn't even ask for it there, huh? Luck, timing, and the environment all play major roles. Wait a minute. I'm just supposed to be great at what I do and get rewarded. Luck, timing, and the environment all play major roles. These things are not controllable. You agree? Can't control luck. Can't control timing. I arrived at my base the moment they had a riff. Can't control environment. Political downsizing, political upsizing, political brack moves. Can't control it, right? None of those things are within your control. So that's fact number 2. So fact 3 leads straight from that, which is you have to be the best that you can be with what you do control, right? Because you don't control what? Exactly. Exactly. So you only have a control over a small piece of that formula. And you cannot strike out that piece of the formula. So, you know, it's like if you add up variables, if you only have control over one variable, you have to make that the strongest number, just like in a formula, that you can. Does that make sense? Not real, a little bit? Okay. So, last fact is when that opportunity comes to exert control, to be the best that you can be, and you say, look, the opportunity is here, I can now be the best I can be, it's too late. Because if you haven't been the best you can be all the way along, it's too late to start. Think about that. If you're waiting for the opportunity to show your stuff, will the opportunity come? Of course not. Because who is the opportunity coming to? After luck, timing, and the environment, the person who is being the best they can be at the job that they are doing. That's who gets the opportunity, right? So, how do you, it's a question I hear often, how do you be the best that you can be and define your career without that variable that you have no control over, luck, timing, and the environment? What do you do? So that's what I was going to talk to you about. It's the magic number 4. There are 4 things. We've already talked about 4 facts, but there are 4 things that you can do. And the first one just sounds way too simple, way too elementary, but I will promise you it is the one step that every civilian that I have talked to and mentored skips. You're dying to know, right? I can tell. It's to decide. It's to decide. Where are you going? Everybody thinks that's the last step. It's the first step. You have to decide what you're going to make of your career, what you are going to define as your career. If I'm a GS-9 and I decide that, you know what, I want to be at Incirlik Air Base as GS-9 and I have 20 more years left and that's what I want to be doing, okay, that's deciding, isn't it? It's not a very long goal, but it is deciding, and I applaud that. Because the person that upsets me the most is the GS-9 who has been at Incirlik 20 years and says, I don't understand why I'm still a GS-9. They didn't decide what they wanted. So consequently, they didn't get much, did they? So you have to first figure out where you want to be. And I don't care if it's in 10 years if it's in 5 years, or if it's in 2 years. But you have to pick a point. And it's okay, just as I said, it's okay to say, in 2 years, I want to be doing exactly the same thing I'm doing right now, in exactly the same place, at exactly the same leadership position. That's okay, that's deciding. Then when you're there, you will have hit it. You know, you've made your goal. But if your goal is different than where you are today, and this left hand is today, right hand's tomorrow, if your goal is different, then you have to say, here's where I am today, and here's where I want to be. And that is the step, ultimately, that most civilians forget to think about. Now, I'm not saying it's a grade. I'm not saying what it needs to be, but if it's, I want to have a master's, or I want to have a bachelor's, or I want to learn a new skill, or I want to cross-train into a new field, or if I want to go to another command, or if I want to get into leadership. Any of those will work. Does that make sense for this point in time? Okay, so that's deciding. And that's the step that people skip. So that's step 1. Step 2 is to plan it. So what do you do? How do you plan if you're here and you know where there is? That was not a rhetorical question. You have 2 points. What do you draw in math? A straight line. It's, I never knew math was so important. I would have paid more attention in school if I had. A straight line. So you decide what that point is, and you figure out, if this is what this is, how do I back schedule to it? If you have 2 years or if you have 5 years, and if this point requires education or PME or other experience, now you can start to create baby steps, right? But again, you have to do that second point. Otherwise, the baby steps could be like this, right? I see some nods. I see some closed eyes, but I see some nods. So, point A, where do we want to be? Point B. So that's the plan. What's it going to take? And if you say, you know what, that plan, I don't want to do it, what is that doing then? Deciding. You have to own it then. Going back to step 1 and saying, this is it, I don't want it. That's fine. That's okay. You've decided then. Then accept where you are and be content with it. Because if you're not content at work, how are you at home? When you're unhappy at work, are you joyful at home? I don't think so. I know when I'm unhappy at home, I'm not joyful at work. They bleed, don't they? It's your life. You're the common element in it. So naturally, they bleed right over. So deciding, I don't want to do that, I'm happy where I am, allows you to be content. And that's important. It's important for your contribution. So, that's step 2, deciding. Sorry, planning. First deciding, then planning. So step 3 is the part you get to control, which is being your best. Now, what does that mean? I apologize. Let me tell you one more thing before I go into being your best. I was in maintenance at Warner Robins. Everybody know where Warner Robins is, right? Right? Georgia. Well, that's true. I was born and raised in Georgia, so I went to Warner Robins. And everybody in Warner Robins said, well, you don't want to go to Wright Pat. That's a big city. That's huge. That's scary. Cost of living. And I had a lot of naysayers. Now that sounds kind of funny. And then when I went to Wright Pat, I was looking at going to Washington, and Wright Pat people said, you don't want to do that. That's big city, expensive. And then I had an opportunity to go to Germany. And what did the people say to me then? You don't want to do that. You don't even understand the language. You don't want to do that. Every place I had, I was thinking about going, you have naysayers, right? And what I looked at it as is I was trying to broaden myself. But I now know I was removing obstacles in my career as I moved from point to point, trying new things. So my third step, first decide, then plan, my third step is removing obstacles. And we all have them. If you spent your career in log readiness at one base most of your life and you only know this wide, now if you're competing with somebody who, here you are, you're good at your job, luck, timing, environment are all okay, but now who are you competing against? You're competing these days against somebody who has been at multiple commands, who's been in multiple aspects of logistics readiness, maybe with a little bit of maintenance thrown in. You're competing against somebody that has a lot of other skill sets. Do you sometimes see that? And so this person has removed obstacles from a supervisor saying, well, they're good, but, that's this person. They're good, but they've only had one job. They're good, but they've only been in one place. They're good, but they've only been at base level and never at MAGCOM or at a headquarters. Have you ever heard that? I see nods. So this person has removed those obstacles. You'll often hear the same for school. They're good, but they never finish their degree. Have you heard that? If this person has a degree, they've removed their obstacles. Our challenge these days is that's your competition. And if you haven't removed your own obstacles, and in my career field, they're good, but they haven't done any PME, which is recognized as very important. They're good, but they're not willing to be mobile. You recognize some of these? They're good, but those are obstacles. And you can be good, but if you haven't removed the obstacles for the supervisor, you're not going to get selected. That's the number 3 step of decide, then plan, and ensure that you have removed all obstacles to selecting you, to making you successful, to defining your career. And it could be different things for everybody. Could be for the acquisition workforce, it's getting what? Acquisition certified, right? Which is going online and doing some work, and then showing your supervisor, I've done this, could you then send me to the next level of school? Those are all obstacles. It's up to you to remove them. And the last thing is, as I was saying, being your best. If you are waiting for your dream job to be your best, it will pass you by. If you are waiting for the promotion to be your best, it will pass you by. Because you are being evaluated, just like I am being evaluated every day on what you are that day. Being your best is something inside you, not based on the job. And every day, a supervisor, a leader, a person in another office is assessing how good you are or how good you aren't by what you do. If you say, well, I'm just making 8, or if I'm just doing time, I've heard them all, haven't you all? I love them, making 8. Like, well, what else could you make? If you're just making time, doing time, waiting for 4:15 or 5 o'clock or whatever it is, that's a message about how good is your being your best that is assimilated daily. So that step and that part is in your control. I said 3 things aren't. What are they? Luck, timing, and the environment. But that is in your control. So if you have decided what you want to do, if you have planned, how do I get there? If you have removed obstacles to your success, then being your best just cements it all. And that becomes a career. And you can look back and say, I've been in the Air Force for 20 years or 10 years, and I still have 10 to go, and I am on my way to the point I planned for. Or I'm going to take a side break. I've heard them all. I want to get my kids through high school. I want to stay where I am. I'm taking a pause, and in 4 years, I'm going to do X, Y, or Z. Have you heard those things from friends? And that's fine. It's not about just the rush to the finish line. Because remember what I said when I began? There are only 4 to 6 promotions in any career. So it's not a rush to the finish line. It's also enjoying the journey, but you decide what the journey is. Don't just fall into it. I've had people cry in my office because they said, I can't believe I would never have picked this 20 years ago. And I said, the problem is you didn't pick anything. You just lived. And they said, well, now I need a master's and I'm too old. I said, how long are you going to work? 12 more years. They said, it'd take me 5 years to get a master's degree to compete. And I said, well, where are you going to be in 5 years if you don't do it? They said, well, right here. And I said, that means 7 years of your career left with what you want. Just decide. It's okay if you decide no. But then what does that do? That controls expectations, doesn't it? So that you're not bitter or mad or feel like you're not loved or I'm just as good as Sally. Why did Sally get picked? I know Joe got picked and he didn't have a master's. I've heard all that, right? We all have.